From Lagos, the nation's commercial capital, this is the News at 10. Live from Channels Television. Reporting tonight, Ijoma Onyato.
Hello and welcome. River State Governor Nyesom Wike prevents former NDDC Managing Director Joy Nune from being arrested from a Port Harcourt residence. House of Representatives issues warrant of arrest on Acting Managing Director of NDDC Interim Management Committee Daniel Ponde for alleged contempt of Parliament. Federal government to prosecute unruly passengers who breach COVID-19 protocols at the nation's airports. And United Kingdom accuses Russia of trying to interfere in its 2019 elections. Plus we'll have business, sports, news from Abuja, the FCT, and later on news from our studios in London.
On business news tonight, Naira is expected to weaken at the Forex market following central bank's directive to banks on Forex restrictions for maize import.
And on sports news tonight, Real Madrid clinched their 34th Spanish La Liga title with a 2-1 win over Villarreal at the Alfredo de Stefano Stadium.
And from Abuja, President Buhari launches Artisanal Gold Mining Development Initiative expected to generate 250,000 jobs in the country.
The controversy rocking the Niger Delta Development Commission, NDDC, continued today, but this time in Port Harcourt, the River State capital, where the sacked managing director of the commission, Ms. Joy Nune, raised an alarm of a purported plan by security operatives to arrest her. The plan was, however, foiled by the River State governor, who came to her rescue and drove her out of her home to the state government house, where she says she's currently seeking refuge. Last week, Mrs. Nune opened up on a scandal rocking the NDDC, an action that's already stirring the hornet's nest.
What would have started out as a regular day in the Jerry, Port Harcourt home of the former managing director of the Niger Delta Development Commission, Dr. Joy Nune, took a different turn in the early hours of Thursday when armed security operatives laid siege at a residence, but for the intervention of Governor Nyesom Wike.
All of them, even the people have been here. It doesn't matter. Okay, can you believe? Can you not? A lady. What kind of society are we in? Can't you invite her to the police? That you come and all of you come. Can you invite her to the police station?
Excellency, ask them for their arrest warrant.
Yes, out.
Arrest warrant.
Out. All of you out.
Early this morning, about 4 o'clock, I hear people were around my gate. I made some calls. I tried to reach the governor because he had told me that if I saw any strange movements, I should alert him since he issued the statement. So I tried to reach him. The phones were off, and then so I called some people. They said they might not be real policemen, so I should stay. They said they came to take me away. I said, for what? Do they have a warrant of arrest? They said no warrant of arrest. So I left it about 6 o'clock. They broke the gate. Akpabio can't kill me. Definitely. He can't. He can't. This is not, I'm not from Uyo now.
A visibly displeased Governor Wike, who described the invasion of Nune's home as attempted kidnap, insists on following due process as he has a responsibility to protect all citizens of the state in spite of party affiliations.
A woman, and we're talking about, we're protecting women. What are we protecting? More police will go 4 a.m. He stormed a woman's house. He has not invited her. No warrant of arrest. Nothing.
Since the commencement of a probe by the National Assembly over allegations of financial recklessness by the Interim Management Committee of the Niger Delta Development Commission, amounting to a cumulative sum of 81 billion naira, the former Managing Director of the NDDC, Joy Nunye, and the Minister of Niger Delta Affairs, Senator Godswill Akpabio, have been on a collision course with screaming headlines of allegations and counter-allegations of multiple infractions. Jeffrey Uzongo, Channels Television News.
And while that drama was going on in Port Harcourt, another scene played out in the House of Representatives in Abuja, where the House Committee investigating the NDDC threatened to issue a warrant of arrest on the interim management of the commission. This follows a drama that played out when the IMC, led by Professor Daniel Ponde, walked out on the House Investigative Committee. Our correspondent Terry Ikumi reports.
The second day of the investigative hearing on the alleged malfeasance in the Niger Delta Development Commission was a struggle to observe the COVID-19 protocol of physical distancing. That's because the management of the Niger Delta Development Commission, led by the acting managing director, has honored the invitation of the House of Representatives Committee on NDDC. And both the chairman of the committee and the managing director are seen face to face, perhaps for the first time since the NDDC accused the committee chairman of hijacking projects from the commission.
All of us know we're in the serious business here.
It doesn't take long before things get out of hand.
We are not comfortable with the chairman of this committee presiding over a matter in which he is an accused party, is an interested party, and we do not believe that the NDDC can have justice because he cannot sit in his own case.
Point of order,
and as long as he is the chairman of this committee, the NDDC will not make any presentations here. There is no point of order here, please. I'm just stating our stand here before we start.
The acting managing director of NDDC has acted in defiance of the Legislative House's Powers and Privileges Act, which provides that no person should fail to answer to questions put to him in the proceedings of the Legislative House.
These laws do not faze Mr. Ponde as he and his team stage a walkout.
Permission was not granted by chairman. Chairman, let it be on record. The acting managing director of NDDC came in and decided to walk out on this committee as his permission was not granted. On the basis of Section 89 of this Constitution, Mr. Chairman, may I move that we invoke our powers for warrant of arrest, to compel the agency to come and answer to Nigerians how they have administered the money that was appropriated to them.
If you support, say aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it.
The hearing continues with submissions from other invited guests.
We told Nigerians that the NDDC has packed into an uncompleted building a 16th-floor headquarters. How can you claim? How can any sane mind believe you when you say it has reached 95% completion? This is the claim by the Minister for the Niger Delta and the unofficial spokesperson of the NDDC, who has hijacked the role of the Director of Corporate Communications of the NDDC, Dr. Cairo Ojubo, a medical doctor who ordinarily, by the Establishment Act 2000 of the NDDC, has no right to serve as acting executive director of projects. If this country were to be a nation of laws, how can a medical doctor be asked to do an engineering job?
The former managing director of the NDDC, Joy Nunye, was also supposed to make a presentation at the hearing, but was held up by security agents at her home in Port Harcourt. Her representative in the House calls for the intervention of the president.
She's not before any court for any wrongdoing, neither is she before any anti-graft agency. And so it beats us to get to know that in these modern times, this 21st century, that we're still living in this kind of a brutish environment. And I just want to use the opportunity to call on Mr. President to intervene.
The committee says it is making plans to ensure that Ms. Nunye makes her presentation as part of the investigative hearing.
Deputy Chairman
Terry Ikumi, Channels Television News.
And the president has ordered a speedy investigation into the issue and the allegations and counter-allegations rocking the NDDC. President Muhammadu Buhari said in a statement today that he is determined to get to the root of the problem impeding the development of the Niger Delta region. In the statement, the president asked security agencies and others involved in the ongoing probe of the NDDC to work together to achieve the administration's efforts of bringing sanity, transparency and accountability into the management of resources dedicated to the development of the Niger Delta region. The president also asked them to engage in the timely sharing of information and knowledge as a way of assisting the administration to diagnose what's gone wrong in the past and find solutions. The Presidential Task Force on COVID-19 has read the Riot Act to any unruly passenger who violates protocols at the airport, including VIPs. The Aviation Minister, Mr. Hadi Sirika, says the federal government will ensure the prosecution of such persons. Mr. Sirika also confirmed that investigations are ongoing over alleged cases of breach of airport protocol by prominent Nigerians.
These alleged unruly passengers included the former governor of Zamfara State, Abdulaziz Yari, whom I spoke to yesterday at length, the current governor of Adamawa, Amadou Fintiri, and then Chief Nduka Agbamina, also alleged here in Abuja. Now, those are being investigated, and if it found that it was true, we will do the needful. If it is found untrue, we would definitely apologize to these individuals. I'd like to go through the Nigeria Civil Aviation Regulations. It goes to say in Part 1797(1), any passenger who becomes unruly at the airport terminal building or on board a particular aircraft commits an offense. So first, it is an offense. So if you are found to be an unruly passenger, because you are a big man, VIP, the simplest that we could do, the easiest, simplest thing that we could do is to refer you to the police, and they must, by law, prosecute you. Please, VIPs, please, show that you are a VIP by conducting yourself in the manner that you would want to be identified with.
Now, the PTF is not only concerned about the safety protocols at the airports, it's also stressing the need for strict adherence to other health and safety protocols as the COVID-19 death toll in the country hits 760. The Minister of Health, Dr. Osage Ehanira, emphasizes the need to protect the most vulnerable groups, which include people with comorbidity and those above 60 years of age.
From 740 COVID-19 related deaths reported on Monday, July the 13th, to 760 deaths, that is an additional 20 fatalities recorded in just 3 days. At this news conference in Abuja, members of the Presidential Task Force on COVID-19 are focusing on how to bring the situation under control.
We have regrettably recorded 760 fatalities, mostly with comorbidities, and a total fatality rate of 2.21%. As the numbers continue to rise in this phase of community transmission, Nigeria, like most other countries, has hardly any other tool left than to focus on the value of non-pharmaceutical measures for prevention.
We are all at risk. But how do we protect ourselves, and particularly if we fall within the vulnerable or high-risk groups? Well, first of all, if we are on medication, ensure that you take your drugs diligently. It's important to keep your medications at home in a sufficient quantity and to limit trips outside your home.
Over 80% of COVID-19 related deaths in Nigeria are those of people with underlying illnesses, or they are over 60 years of age. But beyond the frantic efforts to protect these vulnerable groups, the federal government also has to battle the proliferation of fake pharmaceutical products that are already in circulation.
Following a survey conducted by the Nigeria Institute for Pharmaceutical Research and Development, NIPRID, to check the influx of substandard goods into the market, it was revealed that 63% of alcohol-based sanitizers in Abuja do not have NAFDAC registration numbers.
760 deaths from COVID-19 is by no means an insignificant number, and realizing that these are not mere figures but people who have had their dreams cut short should reawaken a strong sense of responsibility in all who should work to defeat this virus.
In part 2, after the break, with just 1 week to go before rehabilitation work on the third mainland bridge commences, we bring you the situation reports from the bridge and the alternative routes. That's in a moment. Do join us again. Welcome back. If you've just joined us, you're watching the news at 10 on Channels Television, coming to you live from Lagos. A reminder of our top stories. Rivers State Governor Nyesom Wike prevents former NDDC Managing Director Joy Nune from being arrested from her Port Harcourt residence. House of Representatives issues warrant of arrest on Acting Managing Director of NDDC Interim Management Committee Daniel Ponde for alleged contempt of Parliament. Federal governments to prosecute unruly passengers who breach COVID-19 protocols at the nation's airports. And United Kingdom accuses Russia of trying to interfere in its 2019 elections. Our website, channelstv.com, has more information on our top stories and others. Do subscribe and watch Channels Television's live stream on YouTube and other social media platforms using your mobile device browser, or you can download the Channels TV app for Android and iOS devices from their respective stores. You can also watch us via your smart TV platforms on Apple TV, Android, Fire TV, and Roku as well. Barring any last-minute changes, the federal government will go ahead with the partial closure of the third mainland bridge to allow for repairs. The 11.8-kilometer-long bridge, which used to be Africa's longest bridge, will have 12 expansion joints replaced, in addition to the repair of other failing components. Our correspondent, Olu Phillips, tells us more about the federal and state government's readiness.
Are you prepared? Are you making plans? Are you prepped? Have you galvanized yourself mentally? Well, you still have some days more to do that. Why? Come next week, the partial closure of the third mainland bridge will take effect, and it will last for 6 months. The federal government wants to carry out some routine maintenance to replace bad expansion joints, bearings and rubbers off the bridge. Whilst you may be worried of the implications to your time and business, authorities say they are not insensitive, pleading that the work has to be done, and urgently so, for a better travel experience.
Federal government is aware of this, and we know why we want to do it. It's not as if we want to suffer the Lagosian. We need to put that bridge in a sustainable condition.
Traffic coordination tops the list of concerns. State and federal chaperons say there's no cause for alarm as there are favorable alternative roads. But is that the true picture? Well, let's find out.
For instance, on this side of the bridge is the link from Eric Moore in Surulere up
to the Eco Bridge and the island. And to my left, that's this way, will be if you're coming from the Lagos-Badagry Expressway through the Orile-Gomu side. This is what people encounter every day. The pressure will be felt by some of these people because other parts of town may want to use alternative routes. This is one of those major alternative routes connecting the mainland and the island, and this is the tail. There are 3 bridges that connect the mainland Lagos and the island Lagos: the Kata Bridge, the Eco Bridge, and the 3rd Mainland Bridge. Using any of these will depend on what part of town you're traveling from. Those who use the Eco Bridge have this to face and have been for a while. Entrance to the bridge has been closed, and diversion is now through the narrow part of Funsho Williams, or Costain as it's formerly known.
Let them close it, everybody will stay at home.
Now look at the situation
look at what we are facing here. You still expect to close Third Mainland Bridge. So where everybody now will move here.
The Mile 2 end is witnessing some remedial work and the silting of blocked drains very late in time, as the challenge has been brought to the state earlier in the year. Trucks that have been chased out of Apapa in view of restoring law and order by the presidential tax team have made a home indiscriminately in town, making the already bad roads congested. The Orile end, which is another artery and a possible alternative, is congested and flooded. The government has a few days to improve on these situations. The committee and public also have same periods to be convinced of any visible improvement to these challenges. Everyone has got their job cut out. Olu Phillips, Channels Television News.
To legal matters now, a federal high court sitting in Lagos has dismissed a move by the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission seeking the final forfeiture of 2 houses belonging to a former Senate President, Dr. Bukola Saraki, in Ilorin, Kwara State. In his ruling delivered today, Justice Rilwan Aikawa held that the contention of the EFCC that the property was acquired with illegal funds was based on mere suspicion. The court also held that the evidence placed before it was to the effect that the property was substantially financed with money paid to Dr. Saraki as a former governor, in line with the Kwara State Governor and Deputy Governor Payment Pension Law. The court therefore discharged the interim order for forfeiture it had earlier granted in favor of the EFCC on December 2nd, 2019, and subsequently dismissed the Commission's application for final forfeiture of the property. The suspended acting chairman of the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, Ibrahim Magu, has written to the Presidential Task Force over what he describes as publications prejudicial to the proceedings of the panel. In the letter addressed to the chairman of the panel, Justice Ayo Salami, Mr. Magu's lawyer, Wahab Shitu, says the reference to the NFIU's report on Mr. Magu's Forex transactions to the panel, among others, are trumped-up allegations designed to tarnish Mr. Magu's image and that of the credibility of the EFCC, which has been stellar and outstanding under his watch. Based on this, Mr. Shitu asked the panel to uphold his client's fundamental human rights of fair hearing. Mr. Magu was released from detention yesterday after spending 10 days in custody to attend the presidential probe panel investigating the EFCC under his watch. Let's cross over to Abuja now, and here's Linda Akigbe. Linda.
Hello, Ijoma. We begin with the presidency. Nigeria might be witnessing an end to illegal mining and the conflict it brings to mining communities with the implementation of the Presidential Artisanal Gold Mining Development Initiative, headed by the Chief of Staff to President Buhari, Professor Ibrahim Gambari. Today, the team presented to the President a 12.5 kilogram gold bar bought by the Central Bank of Nigeria from artisanal miners for 268 million naira and to be kept at the Central Bank of Nigeria. Our State House correspondent Kayla Megwa reports.
This 12.5 kilogram LBMA gold bar is being bought off the Presidential Artisanal Gold Mining Development Initiative by the CBN governor for 268 million naira on behalf of the country. The bar is then presented to President Muhammadu Buhari by his chief of staff, who doubles as the chairman of the initiative, and then handed back to the Central Bank of Nigeria for safekeeping.
These gold assets, which will be purchased in Naira, will not only help to boost our international reserves, it will also provide a hedge against inflation and other economic volatilities associated with foreign currencies that are held in our reserves.
The Presidential Gold Miners Initiative was launched in 2019 with the sole aim of formalizing artisanal gold mining activities into Nigeria's institutional framework.
Is transforming their lives and contributing to
This gold bar is the first batch of artisanal mined gold bars to be purchased by the Central Bank of Nigeria. It's a culmination of 24 months of collaboration between the Ministry of Mines and Steel Development, the Ministry of Finance, the governments of Kebbi and Osun State, and the Solid Minerals Development Fund.
This is supposed to encourage private sector-led investment. They have a space to participate in PAGMI, and the laws are there, the regulations are there. We'll sensitize people with the ministry, and the states are very supportive as well.
Some unscrupulous elements, especially foreigners, who create instability so that they will have access to the gold unfettered. So this, of course, is being tackled.
Nigeria has lost close to $3 billion between 2012 and 2018 to illegal mining and smuggling of gold. In the last 5 years, over 5,000 people have been killed because of illegal mining conflict in Zamfara state alone. The situation got so bad that gold mining was banned in the state, and the crisis has spread to many states in the northwest.
Whoever wants to participate will register and get trained and participate and do it legitimately. And this will have a significant effect on the insecurity in some places of the country, particularly where mineral production, including gold, is taking place. With the ministers,
most of the conflict brought on in illegal mining communities are sponsored by the funders of these mining activities. This Presidential Gold Miners Initiative seeks to open up the gold mining space, making it legal. That way we can not just get more jobs for the people or create more revenue for the government, but mostly bring peace to the people who live in gold mining communities. Kayla Megwa, Channels Television News.
When the News at 10 returns, Naira is expected to weaken at the Forex market following the central bank's directive to banks on Forex restriction for maize imports. That's in Business News. Join us again. Welcome back to the News at 10, coming to you live from Abuja. The Senate President Ahmed Lawan says the relationship between the National Assembly and the executive arm of government is beyond one employee of the president. He made the statement while speaking to State House correspondents after a closed-door meeting he and the Speaker of the House of Representatives had with President Buhari at the State House in Abuja. The National Assembly recently had an impasse with the Minister of State for Labour, Mr. Festus Keyamo, over the committees set up across the states of the Federation to oversee a special works program aimed at providing employment for 774,000 Nigerians in public services. President Buhari had recently instructed the minister to proceed with its execution despite the suspension of the project by the National Assembly.
Every member of the National Assembly has always been there to ensure that we do the right thing for this country, and Mr. President is in full support of our position that this relationship must be sustained at all times for the benefit of the people of Nigeria. If you are an appointee of the President, you are supposed to be reflective of the attitude of the President towards the National Assembly. And the National Assembly will continue to hold Mr. President, but the National Assembly will take exception to any attitude or disposition that is not in support of the harmony in the relationship between the two arms of government. Wow. I think the relationship between the legislature, this National Assembly, and the executive arm of government, particularly with Mr. President, is beyond one employee of the President.
Meanwhile, President Muhammadu Buhari has re-emphasized the role of the legislature as a critical component in supporting the common goal and commitment of government towards improving the lives of Nigerians, and that any disrespect to the institution by any member of the executive will not be accepted. The president's comment is contained in a letter to ministers and all heads of departments and agencies, where he asks them to at all times conduct themselves in ways that will not undermine the National Assembly as an institution, its leadership and members. He also says he and the leaders of the National Assembly recognize and acknowledge that the executive and legislative arms of government are essential partners in the fulfillment of their mutually aligned goal of improving the lives of the Nigerian people. He made the comments during a meeting with the Senate President and the Speaker of the House of Representatives. Away from the executive, the family of the late Tolulope Arotile, the first female combatant helicopter pilot, is still struggling to come to terms with the shocking early demise of the fighter pilot in the Nigerian Air Force. Her father describes her as a special gift from God who had always nursed the ambition to fly an aircraft. He says he's happy she fulfilled that dream in her lifetime.
How does one begin to quantify the loss of an indelible asset to the Nigerian Air Force, the first female combat helicopter pilot in Nigeria, or the loss to her family at 25 years of age from what was reported to be a freak car accident? One does not, one cannot, for the pain is too much to bear. Her mother paints a picture of a devout daughter full of faith and concern for her fellow officers.
Because at the point of death, Tolu was fasting. Tolu was fasting every blessed day. This girl will be fasting and praying. What are you praying for? You learn this thing from me, but I never kill myself because of prayer and fasting. This girl, slow this thing down. Any problem within her colleagues, she will put it on her head.
Talking about Tolu the past tense, for me, it's
her father is equally descriptive of the kind of person Tolulope, his daughter, was beyond her Air Force uniform.
Tolu is like a child that is gifted by God. God gave her a very high IQ, and on her own, she works too hard to even improve on that IQ.
Although the Air Force has explained the circumstances surrounding her death, her family believes the incident leaves more questions than answers.
I suspect because we attended, everybody in my house, apart from my youngest sister, attended Air Force Secondary School, Kaduna. And we know where the speed bumps are. So for anyone to speed on that road, it's either intentional or there is just some reason. So I believe there is foul play, but I know that the military will be thorough in all of the investigations. I know they're carrying out the investigations now. I'm aware that they've arrested the boys that were in the car, but I'm not aware of any other information that has been released. But that's all I know for now.
As the family and indeed the country comes to terms with the loss of this shining star, many will be hoping that the military authorities will carry out a thorough investigation into the accident that claimed the life of Tolulope Arotile, Nigeria's first female combat helicopter pilot.
And may Tolulope's soul rest in peace. And that's all from Abuja. Now to Teniola for business news.
Welcome to Business News. The Nigeria Liquefied Natural Gas Company has reacted to the allegations of illegal withdrawal of $1.05 billion from NNPC's NLNG dividend account by its Managing Director, Tony Atta, and the Group Managing Director of the NNPC, Mele Kyari, by the House of Representatives. The General Manager, External Relations and Sustainable Development, in a statement, describes the allegations as false, insisting insisting that NLNG strictly follows extant protocols in the payment of dividends as value generated from the business and ensures that the process concerning payment of dividends to its shareholders is transparent and in full compliance with the laws of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. According to him, the governance and controls around the company's finances also makes the allegations against the managing director and the GMD an impossible scenario, and therefore members of the public are advised to disregard the allegations as it's totally baseless and simply untrue. Now, the Naira is expected to weaken at the Forex market next week as demand shifts to the parallel segment of the market. Currency traders say the projection is based on recent directive by the Central Bank of Nigeria ordering banks to stop processing new Forex trade documents for the importation of maize. This comes amid concerns by many manufacturers and poultry farmers who also use maize that challenges in gaining access to Forex could also disrupt the value chain of the commodity. Last week, the central bank adjusted the Naira upwards by 5.5% to 380 Naira on the official market, which is close to the over-the-counter spot market, widely used by investors and importers. The Nigerian Aviation Handling Company PLC has announced a dividend of 30 kobo for every 50 kobo share for the year 2019. The chairman of NACO PLC, Mr. Sende Fadeni, announced this at the 39th annual general meeting in Ikeja, Lagos. Mr. Fadeni says the company is undergoing a transformation plan that will make business profitable while adding value for shareholders.
It's the 39th annual general meeting for one of the leading ground handling companies in Nigeria, the Nigerian Aviation Handling Company PLC. This season calls for social distancing and fewer numbers in any gathering. Rendering accounts is normal for any venture, and it's down to the business of the day.
The industry contributed 198.62 billion to GDP as at the end of 2019. Dear shareholders, it is our belief that the board and management, with your support, will grow our revenues, improve our profit margins, set aside a robust reserve as we move into the coming year, and continually meet your expectations.
For the 40-year-old company that is the first Nigerian ground handler to enter into a global alliance and the first in West Africa to achieve the IATA Safety Audit for Ground Operations Certification, 2019 has been favorable for business, and so shareholders have a return on investment.
We are therefore proposing a gross dividend of 30 kobo per ordinary share of 50 kobo, each amounting to 487 million to the members for approval.
On the financials, NACO recorded a group profit of over 9.9 billion naira in 2019, a 2.3% increase over 2018. The company also grew its profit after tax to over 700 million naira, compared with 196.7 million naira of the previous year.
We realized what we did that was good, the investment in our equipment, investment in our people, how we're able to use that to our benefit. What we're doing is not to take any of those mistakes, because they were not COVID related, and bring them into 2020. So I will face 2020 for what 2020 is and get the best out of 2020.
While the COVID-19 pandemic rages on with significant impact on aviation businesses, NACO says it's undeterred and will continue to push the envelope. The meeting came to a close with the re-election of the chairman of the board and 2 non-executive directors.
Well, sentiments remain positive for a second day at the stock market as the all-share index records its biggest gain since the 26th of June on an increase in the share price of MTN Nigeria, Airtel Africa and some Tier 1 bank stocks. BC Adebayo tells us more.
Hello and welcome to the Stock Market Report. The rebound, which began on Wednesday at the market, waxed stronger today thanks to gains recorded by the banking sector and MTN Nigeria, Big lenders like GT Bank, Zenith Bank, and even UBA drove up the banking index just as investors extended interest in the telco industry showed up the share price of MTN Nigeria. All of this put together pushed the main index higher by nearly 1%. Traders are quite impressed that this is happening because many had lost hopes for a rebound in the market until some earnings results are released. But volume and value of transactions remain a very big issue. Now, no one seems to understand why they have remained significantly low despite the gains recorded so far. However, in overall value of transactions, MBNH was a major contributor with over 103 billion naira, while Sterling Bank retains the #1 spot in volume for the 4th consecutive session. Traders expect the positive momentum to continue tomorrow if fundamentally sound stocks sustain the uptrend. And that's it on the stock market reports. I am Bisi Adebayo.
Thanks, Bisi. On the other hand, it's negative sentiments across the board for the world-leading stock markets. Let's take a look at the closing figures for today. And that's Business News Tonight. I'm Teniola Shoboale.
Thanks a lot, Teniola. Still ahead on the news at 10, United Kingdom accuses Russia of trying to interfere in its 2019 elections. Plus more stories from our London studio in Around the World in 5. Please stay with us. Welcome back. The UK government says Russia tried to interfere in the 2019 election by obtaining sensitive documents relating to a planned free trade agreement with the US and leaking them on social media. The UK's National Cyber Security Centre also claims that hackers backed by the Russian state are trying to steal COVID-19 vaccine and treatment research from academic and pharmaceutical institutions around the world. Here's Simon Pusey with more international news in Around the World in 5.
Good evening and welcome to the Channel Studios here in London with your international news around the world in 5. Spain's King and Prime Minister have both paid tribute to the more than 28,000 COVID-19 victims in the country. King Felipe and Pedro Sanchez paid tribute with black masks and white roses in a state ceremony and were joined by European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen and the European Council President. Many of the 400 guests outside the Royal Palace in Madrid, including relatives of the victims, laid white roses on a black pedestal surrounding a bowl of burning coals. Spain is one of the worst hit countries in Europe, and after overcoming the first wave of contagions, is currently fighting small clusters of coronavirus across the country. Meanwhile, many fear South Africa's healthcare system is at breaking point. The country, which many had thought had dealt well with the pandemic, now has over 311,000 cases, the most in Africa and amongst the top 10 in the world. Twitter says a coordinated attack targeting its high-level employees was the reason for yesterday's hack of several celebrities and world leaders. US presidential candidate Joe Biden and former US President Barack Obama, along with Bill Gates and Elon Musk, were all targeted. In a scam message that began, "I am giving back to the community," multiple official accounts directed their millions of followers to deposit money into anonymous Bitcoin accounts. Twitter says all users' security has now been restored. British judges have ruled that a London schoolgirl who travelled to Syria to join Islamic State should be allowed to return back to the UK. Shamima Begum left the UK to join IS when she was just 15, but now wants to return. Her British citizenship was revoked on security grounds. The judges of the Court of Appeal said that the only way she would be able to have a fair and effective appeal of that decision would be if she was permitted to come back to the UK. Azerbaijan and Armenia have both accused each other of shelling military positions and villages, breaking their latest ceasefire agreement. Both countries' defence ministries accused the other of firing mortars from before dawn and encroaching on their territory, though there were no casualties reported. 12 Azeri and 4 Armenians, including 1 civilian, have died so far in the border clashes. Ethiopia's water minister has announced the reservoir behind the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam is filling a day after talks with Sudan and Egypt on the project stalled. Sudan and Egypt both fear the $4 billion dam could lead to water shortages in their own nations. The dam, when finished, will have an installed capacity of 6,450 megawatts, more than doubling Ethiopia's existing capacity, and is the centerpiece of the country's bid to become Africa's biggest power exporter. Hundreds of people have protested in Moscow against constitutional reforms that give President Vladimir Putin another 16 years in office. Witnesses and monitoring groups reported over 100 demonstrators were arrested during the protest. Opposition activists say the vote was illegitimate and that it is time for Putin, who has ruled Russia for over 2 decades, to step down. Tunisian Prime Minister Elise Fakhfakh has stepped down, plunging the country into a political crisis as it tries to weather the economic fallout of the coronavirus. The Prime Minister presented his resignation to President Kais Saied as momentum grew in Parliament to oust the Prime Minister over an alleged conflict of interest. Experts say this will further delay urgent economic reforms and complicate efforts to handle any new surge in coronavirus cases. Floods continue to ravage South and East Asia, while in India, monsoon floods have swamped large parts of its eastern states. Local officials report this new wave of flooding have forced more than 1 million people into makeshift shelters. The floods have killed at least 10 people and injured more than 70 in the states of Assam, Bihar and Jharkhand. And in Italy, the country has seen the most rain in 100 years as the city of Palmero registered in 2 hours the quantity of rain that usually falls in a whole year. People were seen on the highways swimming out of their cars. At least 2 people have been killed. 7 Turkish security personnel have died in a plane crash in eastern Turkey. The plane crashed on a mountain in the eastern Van province at an altitude of around 700 meters. Accident investigators are working to determine the cause of the crash. And finally, Ivory Coast has installed its first intelligent hand washing station. Set up by a Swiss NGO, it was placed outside the Bingaville market in the capital Abidjan. The station has sensors that can tell if a water tank is running low and how many people are staying sanitized. The NGO says the data will help tell officials if people are following health and safety measures correctly. And that's your international news around the world in 5. Now back to the Channel studios in Lagos.
Thank you, Simon. Hello and welcome to Sports News. It's celebration time in the city of Madrid after Real Madrid won the 2019-2020 La Liga title by beating Villarreal 2-1 at the Alfredo de Stefano Stadium. Los Blancos took a 4-point lead over Barcelona into the matchday 37 clash, knowing a win over the Yellow Submarines will give them an unassailable lead with a game to go. In the English Premier League, Leicester got their Champions League push back onto a winning start with a 2-0 win over Sheffield United to move within a point of third-place Chelsea. Manchester United, also chasing a top 4 finish, beat Crystal Palace 2-0 to stay in touch with the Foxes. Also in football, former Golden Eaglets captain Samson Tijani has joined Austrian Bundesliga champions RB Salzburg from Collins Edwin SC. The 18-year-old's contract is still until May the 31st, 2025. Tijani, who is a defensive midfielder, captained Nigeria to the last 16 of the FIFA Under-17 World Cup in Brazil last year, scoring twice in the opening game with a win over Hungary. And that's it on Sports News. Ijama, back to you.
Olumide, and the main news again. The Rivers State Governor Nyesom Wike today rescued the sacked NDDC Managing Director Joy Nune from being arrested by some officers in Rivers State. This is coming as President Muhammadu Buhari ordered speedy investigation into the controversies trailing the NDDC. That's the news at 10 tonight. Thanks a lot for staying with us. I'm Ijoma Onyato. Do you have a good night? And please stay safe as well.